يا شلوم عليكم فرجوني ميقري حبرد عبيري أركي عمينا عديوم لايف عديوم كتلن تحرستو ديلونيتو أربع بيرحو تامز يو عيدو بعمريقا يو كتلن أرحو عمريقا قد مذعين عليكم بل لو عديوم لو بسوريت قدوي بإنجليشويو موخا سكبعني سمنو يفتحتو بلشونو إنجليشويو بلكي بينو ثي نقاتم ترجمنا مدوني بل قطرنا قاميتو مشغل يقردو ورحيدا. Hello everybody and welcome to our session. Today is July 4th. It's the national holiday of US. We have a special guest from California today. It's Mr. Carlo Ganjeh. First of all, I would like to welcome you, Carlo, for this session.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity and I'm grateful for the time that we will have together.
Yeah, I think it's the idea was, of course, that we have really very few informations about the Assyrians in general in Iran, particularly in context of the 12-day war between Israel and Iran. I think the situation may have changed, and we would like to know, of course, how they are doing, where they are living, where they impacted, and so talk about all these issues today.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah. But let me start first with introducing you, because you are first time here in our video podcast. So let's start with you have been born in Tehran in Iran and immigrated, as I understood, via Turkey and a couple other countries to United States of America in 1985. And so far I know, you have been active member in Assyrian organizations, communities, local, state, national, and internationally. And you reside, of course, in California, where we met. I think it was in 1993 we met first time over there. You are married and you have two children, Brashid and Bardin Ganjeh. You have been, even in Iran, in your youth, active in Assyrian organizations over there. But let me just go over your activities in the US. In 1987 to 1989, you have been co-founder and chairman of the Culture Wave of Nsibin. I haven't heard of that. Maybe you can later explain what kind of an organization that was. Then from 89 to 91, you have been president of the Assyrian American Association of San Jose. Of course, this is a very old traditional organization that exists today. And I was member when I was in working and living in California over there. In 1991 to 93, you have been president of the Assyrian United Organizations of California. And until 94, also regional director of the Assyrian American National Federation. So the Assyrian Federation had basically a regional structure, and you were the head of the region, of the California region. In 1998, you became vice president of the Assyrian American National Federation. And from 98 to 2002, you were assistant to late Senator John Nimrod, Secretary General of the Assyrian Universal Alliance. In 2002, you became a member of the Assyrian United AUA's executive board. And until 2001, you also basically you were responsible as America chapter secretary of the AUA. And then since 2021, you are now Secretary General of the Assyrian Universal Alliance. Maybe this is not complete what I have been able here to collect. If you want to make any addition or correction, please do so.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I think that was more than enough. And but basically, I mean, we grew up with the activities, and the main reason behind it was my parents, my mom, my dad, and my grandparents. Because my grandmother, she did witness the genocide, and also they were forced to move from Iran to Iraq and then come back to Iran in 1927. From my mother's side, they were forced to leave Ottoman Empire, face the genocide, come to Iran, and then move to Ukraine, and then be deported back to Iran. And that's why we kind of grew up with the Assyrian nationalism in our family. Most of my family members, they're active in either in churches or organizations, and we try to do our best to serve our people.
What I noticed is that you have been in Iran member of the Assyrian Evangelical Church. That means you are still member of the Evangelical Church?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom, she's a member of the Assyrian Church of the East.
Okay.
She's very devoted, and I grew up in the Assyrian Church of the East. I even was a member of the group that they sung on Sundays at the church when I was like 8, 9 years old. I learned the Assyrian language from late Mardencha in Tehran. He was our teacher because I did attend the elementary school of the Assyrian Church of the East. But later on, because my dad, from his mother's side, they were from the evangelical church.
Mhm.
I went to the church because it was closer to our neighborhood, and I'm still a member of the Assyrian Evangelical Church of San Jose. But I respect all the different denominations that we have: Assyrian Church of the East, Assyrian Church of the East, ancient Assyrian Church of the East, Syriac Orthodox, Syriac Catholic. We have 9 different denominations. That these are all Syriac speaking churches. And when you say these are Syriac speaking churches, there is a reason that they speak or they used the Syriac language because there are our people, you know. And I was last Sunday, I was at the Church of the East. Marawa was there, which I respect him a lot. And we try to have an open communication with our churches, okay? Because in my opinion, they are one of the most important institutions that we have, and we have to protect them, and we have to support them. I know sometimes they make mistakes because they're human too. Everybody makes mistakes, but we have to support these institutions. But we want them to be independent. We don't want them to be under the pressure of any government or political idea. They have to think independently, and they are a major force to unite our people. Okay, I know from the theology sides, it's it may not work because naturally Church of the East has its own theology, Syriac Orthodox Church has its own theology, Chaldean Church, they have their own theology. In the basis they're very close, but you cannot change the theology, but they can work together, they can have a positive relationship. And I think we see that with most of our church leadership these days, because they're worried about the future of the nation. Because if nation is not there, they're not going to be any church. These are both connected.
Okay, let's start maybe with Tehran, current situation, Tehran. First of all, how many people do we have there from Assyrian community, all denominations,
Mhm.
and what is the situation currently?
It, I will make some clarification. The Assyrian population prior to the revolution in Iran,
Okay,
based on the 1976 census done by the Pahlavi dynasty, that government, we had close to 80,000 Assyrians in Iran. Recently, I heard some people they were claiming that they were 500,000 Assyrians. No, that's not correct. They were only 80,000 Assyrians in Iran.
80,000.
500,000, that was including the Zoroastrians, the Jewish people, and the Armenians. Okay,
Okay,
but 80,000 of them, they were Assyrian. Assyrian history in Iran goes back to maybe old Assyrian Empire age because of the trade and the roads and the relationship and the weather of the Urmia. We're not indigenous people of Urmia. We came down from the mountains of today north of Iraq, Ashur, to this area, but we're not indigenous to that area. But we've been there for a very, very long time. Right now, the population of Assyrians in Iran is something between 12,000 to 15,000. They're mostly living in Tehran, in Fardis, which is like a very close to city of Tehran, then Urmia, Ahvaz, Shahin Shahr, and smaller population in some different cities. But the population is between 12 to 15,000 people. We have churches there, we have bishops there, we have a bishop of the Church of the East in Tehran, we have a bishop of the Assyrian Chaldean Church. He's from Zakhu, he was appointed recently. He resides in Tehran. We have an Assyrian Evangelical Church in Tehran and Urmia, and we have a Assyrian Pentecostal Church in Iran, which recently they have less activities. Then we have our social organizations. Each city usually have its own Assyrian association as a nonprofit organization, and they are licensed under the Internal Ministry of Iran, like any country like United States. They do culture activity, they teach language, they do different activities. Unfortunately, after COVID, what happens is that like COVID had affected all of us, the activities, it may be less now, but they're coming back. And, people are still there and they want to be active.
So we
Naturally,
have also,
whatever they do is under under the laws of the Iranian government, whatever civil law or constitutional rights that they have. We have a representative in the Iranian parliament. That's the probably oldest Assyrian seat in a parliament in the Middle East. I have heard that even when the first revolution happened in Iran about over 120 years ago, at that time there were laws that we Assyrians have a representative. But until 1962, I believe, we were not electing our own representative. Until 1962, with the revival of the Assyrian activism in Iran, we had our own representative. We vote for them. Nobody else has a right to come and vote for the Assyrian representative. We have an Assyrian representative. We have a Zoroastrian representative. We have a Jewish representative in the parliament, and we have two Armenian representatives. And usually these five representatives, they have a block of the religious minorities. It is important to note that in Iran, we recognize as a religious minority. Okay, we are not ethnic group or indigenous people. We are religious minorities, like the Jewish are, the Zoroastrians are, or the Armenians. We have some organization that they do culture activities in Iran, like that they publish magazines. There is a magazine that get published in Tehran. There is a magazine published by the Assyrian Association of Tehran. You have lots of individuals that they do lots of projects, and there is lots of talent in Iran, honestly, with the Assyrians in Iran. Right now, we have one famous actor in Iranian cinema industry, Mr. Shamoon, and then we also have a new actress. She's a lady from Iran that she plays in a Persian movie. We have very good art.
Who is currently the representative in the parliament? It was formerly Yonadem Betkalia, Professor
Yes.
Shabo Talai, who is with us from the University of Berlin. He organized back, I think, 2017, 18, I am not sure, a conference where he invited him actually to the conference. Who is following him?
Mr. Betkolia, he retired about 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, and then he didn't run for the election. And then now we have a new representative, Mr. Charlie Inviya. He's from Urmia, but now he's a member of the parliament. He resides in Tehran, and he's been serving the Assyrian community. This is his second term. I think he's been in parliament for now 6 years, and
Okay.
he represents the community.
So, as we said in the beginning, how are Assyrians or Christians in general impacted by this conflict between Israel and Iran?
Naturally, Assyrians are Iranian citizens. They born in that country for centuries. They've been there, and they suffer like any other citizens. Okay, thank God there hasn't been any damages to Assyrian community, especially in Urmia, because we have more population in Urmia now these days than Tehran. Okay, but there haven't been any damages. Naturally, they were scared. It wasn't a good time, and people there were shocked by the war, and nobody thought that that's going to happen, but it did happen. And but thank God they did okay. The churches had made the announcement for people, if anybody needs to move into the churches, to stay there, to be together. The door of churches was open. As far as the food supply or energy, everything was okay. They had some issues with the internet, and that was most of it because of the uh, you know cyber attacks or security issues that were happening. But thank God they were okay, and thank God that the 12 days war is over, and we hope that it doesn't happen again, and we hope that there would be a negotiation between the United States and the Iranian government to resolve the differences. And we as the AUA believe that we need to have a peacetime in Middle East. Our people are sick and tired of all this conflict, killing, massacres, genocides, bombing. We don't need that. We really need to have peace in Middle East. But unfortunately, different powers, different ideologies are affecting the Middle East, and that has a very negative effect on our people. It doesn't matter if you live in Iran, Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Israel. We have Assyrians in Israel too, and it's affecting them. Okay, and that's bad. That's bad for us. That's bad for Persians, for Arab, for the Jews, for everybody. We need to have peace in the Middle East. And I'm hoping that President Trump will push to bring that peace in the Middle East.
Actually, as you have published a press release calling for a peaceful resolution of the conflict. Last week, I saw the press release. It's, I think, on your website publicly also available on that. So you have shared with me pictures that you have put in a slideshow. If you want, we can go through and then tell a story of the pictures or
Sure.
however you want. Should we go through that?
Sure, definitely.
Okay, then let me share here the screen. Let's start, I think, with this one. So, okay.
Okay, this is it's called Gilgamesh plate, which is it was recovered in a village of Guitapa. In Guitapa, there is a hill called Benge. Under that hill, there was a temple, and that Gilgamesh was found there, which is a proof that either Assyrian or maybe other people that there were area, but there was a Gilgamesh temple there, and that was found there. It was taken by the British Museum, and probably right now is in the British Museum custody. And if you go to that hill, you have the Gilgamesh temple, then you have the Zoroastrians temple, and then you have churches that they were built on that. There are two churches on that hill right now. One of them is the Red Church, which has been destroyed it was built by the Russian. And then there is a evangelical church that there are some assistance from the government to save the church because it's a huge church. But this is a historical hill, and that was found there. And in Guitapa, when the World War I happening, there were more than 10,000 Assyrians from the surrounding villages that they gathered in Guitapa because they were attacked by the Kurdish forces. And there is a famous story that the American missionaries, they came and they paid the Kurdish forces to pull back, not to massacre the Assyrians.
Okay, so this one?
This one is another, I couldn't find the exact picture, but it's writing in the on the mountain that Ashurbanipal, the when he attacked the Elam civilization, Elamian civilization, because you know that that civilization was destroyed by the Assyrians, the Shusha Elam civilization, and that's one of the archaeological sites in the Iran that shows that Ashurbanipal was there. There another one in West Azerbaijan in the mountains that is proof that the Assyrians they were there, and that goes back to maybe 3,000 years ago.
Mhm.
Also, there are stories that I have read it from the book of Assyrian Nation, history, Assyrian history by Menashe Amr, which was published back in 1950s in Iran, that the Assyrian kings, they, came all the way to today Tehran. Even there are stories that there is a district in Tehran called Shamiran, which, is named after Shamiran. I'm not sure if that's a true story or not. But Assyrians, they've been in Iran for a very, very long time.
It's interesting that there is some acknowledgement, let me say, of relationship or cultural transfers or interconnection between the ancient Syrian history and the Iranian history. It's very interesting.
Yes, there are lots of Iranian scholars that they respect Assyrian history,
Mm.
and they even admit that the Assyrian engineers they helped to build the Persepolis in ancient time, and we had lots of effect in the area. Also, when the empire collapsed, we didn't vanish. Okay, we had we were smaller countries, Asuristan, which it was connected to the Persian Empire. Even there are books that when the Persian army was going to fight the Greek army, the right wing of the Persian army was the Assyrian army. And there's are lots of evidence. And we were there, and we had to run our own provinces and pay our taxes, and there is no problem. The problem was because the border they were moving back and forth between the Persians, Greeks, Romans, and then the Islamic invasion of the whole area. The borders moved. Sometimes we lived in the Persian Empire, sometimes in Ottoman Empire, sometimes in Roman Empire, sometimes in the Greek territory.
Okay.
And but yeah, they do lots of respect that. I have a book that they say even more than 1,000 Assyrian words has been included in the Persian language.
Mm.
That today they use them. This is another, you know, another writing on the mountains. I couldn't find the picture, but again goes back to the Ashurbanipal, which is the picture of Ashurbanipal, and it's in the mountains close to, I believe it's close to either Urmia or Salmas region in that area.
Okay.
This is the map of the Assyrian villages in Urmia
Urmia.
region. And, there are different estimates. We had maybe between 100 up to 150 or maybe more Assyrian villages in Urmia, in Salamas, and in Suldus area. And those villages, they were there for centuries. For example, the church of Marzaya in our village was built by the Malekyonan family close to 700 years ago. They brought the original stone from Jilu to Guitapa and they built the church for Marzaya. And
Mhm.
we have lots of other things that I'm going to explain when we go forward. But these villages, most of them now, they don't have a Syrian population. Maybe one or two villages that have a Syrian population. Two of them, they're still 100% Assyrian. But the rest of them, they're mixed and they have a very small number of the Assyrian people. Okay, this is the church of Saint Mary. In Farsi, they call it Church of Nane Maryam, means Mother Mary. That church is located in Urmia, is maybe the oldest church in the Christianity history that was built, and is still in Urmia. Now there is another church that was built, I believe, back in part of it was built at the World War I, and then after the World War I, it was rebuilt. The Church of St. Mary, the Church of the East, that is connected to the old church.
Okay.
This is inside of the Church of St. Mary when you go inside, and these are the gravestones of the bishops. There are stories that this church, I mean, goes back to the 1200 AD at the Sassanid time, but at the same time, I have heard stories from the Assyrian people that it goes back to maybe year 50 or 57 after that. And it's the old church. If you want to get access to it, you have to go down by the stairs because it was built long time ago. There is now it's kind of the dirt has built up, and you have to go down inside to access the church.
Okay.
Again, same church, St. Mary Church. There are three ancient churches in Assyrian ancient churches in Urmia plain. And this is another picture from St. Mary. And there are lots of interesting stories. Even some people say that one of the Majusis was buried there.
This is a beautiful architecture because it seems that it was demolished. Only the walls were existed, so the roof is built on top of that in a modern but very fitting kind. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the wall were covered by the sheetrock, but thanks to the Church of the East, they got permission from the archaeological site to clean it up and get the stones out again. Yeah, the church has been built too many times because whenever we got attacked in Urmia by the Mongols, by the Turkish tribes, or anybody, most probably the church was attacked, and then it was rebuilt again.
Beautiful. Oh, sorry.
This is the new church of Saint Mary that has been built next to the old church.
Yeah.
And it's still there. It's one of the most beautiful churches that we have in Iran.
This is in Urmia?
Yes, it belongs to the Church of the East. Yes. It's next to the ancient church.
Okay.
This is the inside of the church in Urmia. We took this picture back in 2012 when we were there for prayer. Okay, this is the hospital built by the American missionaries in Urmia. And this is a very interesting story. In 1827, for God knows what reason, the American missionaries, they approached the Iranian government, the Qajar dynasty, Fatali Shah Qajar, and they told them that they want to help the Assyrian in Urmia region. That was 1827. After a few years, they got the permit, and I believe in 1832, they opened up their first office in Urmia. What they did, they started building elementary schools, high schools, later on college for nursing, college for medical school, and that was the hospital. In this hospital, there were maybe thousands and thousands of Assyrian refugees that they were, been taken care of in that hospital at the World War One. Okay, and there are lots of research, lots of books about the American mission in Iran, in Urmia region. The most interesting things for me was that when they applied for the permit, they applied under the Nestorian church name, and they got the permit to work with the Nestorians. But later on, as soon as they got to Urmia, they find out they have made the mistakes. And they changed it from the Nestorians to Assyrian mission.
Mhm.
And they did lots of contribution to the Assyrians, to the Azeris, to the Kurdish people, because they had school for people. There were hundreds of doctors that they graduated from these schools, and they served the Iranian all over Iran. And also probably they had their own objective too, because all the American missions in around the world, they used to send reports to the United States Department of State,
Mhm.
okay, and in a format letter. And that's how they got the information to the Americans by the missions.
Or do any architectural remains of this hospital still exist, or is it doesn't exist anymore?
I'm not sure, but I know Urmia has a medical school, and maybe part of it is being preserved,
Mhm.
but I have to double check on that.
Okay.
But I know Urmia still has a very good medical school. These are the Assyrian ladies from the nursing school, American nursing school, that they were graduating. And as you see, those two ladies with the hats, those are Americans. And the rest of these ladies are, Assyrians that they studies at the schools and they become nurses. And I think until 1950s, 60s, there was an American school in Tabriz that they used
Mhm.
to train nurses. And then after that, it was closed down and, they
Mhm.
stopped doing that. But we had one of the graduate, she passed away about 2 years ago in San Jose, that she did study at that college.
Beautiful picture, yeah.
Okay, this is the church of my village. This picture goes back to the 17th century. It's called Church of Marzaya in Guytapa. And the church was built probably 700 years ago by the Malikian family, and their great granddaughters are United States, and that's the picture from 17th century.
Mhm.
That's the picture probably from 1930s, 1940s in Urmia from the
Mhm.
same church.
Mhm.
This is the picture of the same church right now in Urmia region.
Ah,
Each
okay.
year, the Assyrians from Guytap or generally from Iran, they celebrate the Marzaya celebration at the church. This year they had to cancel it because of the war that happened between Iran and Israel. They had to cancel it. But this is the current church in Iran that called Marzaya in Guytapa.
Mhm.
These are some Assyrian villages. These are from after World War II. You can see it from the clothing and the hats. At that time, the Assyrians, they had starting working in transportation business. They become
Mhm.
drivers for the trucks, and they were very good in that. Even they controlled the business for some times, and they were living in Urmia, but they were working on the trucks or on the railroad or in the oil company. And these are Assyrian villages from, I believe it's either from Erdishai or Guytapa. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Okay, this is the first Assyrian soccer club in Tehran. That soccer club, it was called Numrad, and it was established by Rabbi Vladimir Bet David. Rabbi Vladimir Bet David, he went to France to study art, and in France he was introduced by the Assyrian star and the Shalmansar, you know, uh, engraving of the Assyrian star. When he goes back to Iran, he started a soccer team called Nimrod, and the logo of the soccer team was the Assyrian star. It's probably one of the first times that people start using the Shamash, the Assyrian star, for their activities. And that team
This
was
is From the 60s, 1960s?
50s.
50s.
Yeah. This is the church of Mar Yosef. I believe it was built by end of 1950s in Tehran. It's the Chaldean Assyrian Catholic Church, and it's the place that the bishop stays there for the Chaldean Church in Iran, and it's one of the most beautiful churches that we have in Tehran.
Mm. It looks like a cathedral.
Yes, yes, it's beautiful, and as you can see, it has some of the Assyrian designs.
Mm.
This is the same church from the another side. Uh, the church is still active. They have pastors there, and but because it's located, it's kind of a central Tehran. It's not very accessible on the weekdays because of the traffic. But it's very active. It's a beautiful church. I've been there numerous times for baptize and other events. The church, the picture on the right-hand side, this is the church of the East in Tehran. It's called Church of Margivergis and St. George. And it is in Tehran. That church was built by the late Mardan Khan in Tehran. And I mean, we all grew up in this church because it was one of the most active churches in Tehran. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any pictures from the main gate of the church, but it's another beautiful church that we have in Tehran. And all these churches, they also have a social hall, you know, that people they do their events and programs at the social hall of the church. Not wedding, but any kind of ceremony. This is the Bishop of Tehran, Mornarsay, and the other priests from the Church of the East in Tehran. This is the Church of Margivergis in Tehran. And in Tehran, you have Church of the East has two churches, one Saint Mary and then Margivergis. Catholic Church, Chaldean Catholic Church has two churches, Mar Yosef and Mat Mariam. And then you have one evangelical church and one Pentecostal church. The custodian of the Pentecostal church right now is the Church of the East. Because of some situation that happened, and there were not enough members and the license wasn't issued to the church, the conclusion was by the Assyrians in Tehran to take the custody of the church, to give it to Church of the East and keep the church open. Right now, I mean, the church is open. They have Sunday schools on Fridays at the church for kids, youth activities, and prayers. And that church is called Martuma. This is the this is the Assyrian Presbyterian Evangelical Church of Tehran. That church was built in 1960s. It was, I built back in 1960s, 70s, was the biggest evangelical church in Middle East by numbers. It had more than 1,000 members. And as you can see, it's designed like a book, like a Bible, and it was designed by the Assyrian architect. He passed away a few years ago. And this is a St. Thomas Church, Assyrian church in Tehran. And this is the inside of the church for, I believe, last year Christmas gathering that they had. That's Keshishninus Muqaddasniya.
Who إلى يشوع مشيحه. I can't read that one. No?
Minni La'amina.
Yeah.
This is the Assyrian Association of Tehran. Assyrian Association of Tehran has a history more than 100 years. The Urmiya Association, or Mutfa, because in Iran we call them Mutfa, is one of the oldest Assyrian organizations. I think it goes over like 110 years old. In Tehran, the first Assyrian, they settled about 100 years ago, and this is the hallway at the Assyrian Association. Unfortunately, I had some pictures, but I hadn't had enough pictures to show the facility. It's a very great facility, and the office of the association is there. The Assyrian school is right behind it, which is still controlled by the Assyrian Association of Tehran. We have two schools in Tehran. We have two schools in Urmia. Unfortunately, in Tehran, because of the number of people has dropped a lot, we have very limited number of the Assyrian students. Majority of the students are non-Assyrian students.
To which level they teach?
Uh, from elementary to high school.
To high school.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. I was actually going to come back to this. That means the cultural activities, the schools are organized by the associations, not by the church.
No, there is a very, there is a very close cooperation between the churches and the associations. Sometimes, it's natural to have misunderstanding or, issues will happen. We're all human. But most of the things are organized by the associations culturally. They have sports events. We have sports club in Urmia. We have a sports club in Tehran, and usually they pay. They have games at the in month of Tammuz game by the end of this month. I'm not sure if they're going to do it this year, but they've been doing it for a very long time. And even some teams from Iraq, from Armenia, from Georgia, from Russia, from Syria, they had participated in the event for the sports activities. And yes, the associations, they do the culture activity, they do the sports activity, they do the social gathering, and the churches, they do their own activity.
So I assume that then the membership in the associations is cross-denominational.
Yeah, everybody is member. It doesn't matter. In Iran, we never had this um, argument that you are from this church, I am from this church. It was something that it was finished. We all went to each other church. Always there was a great relationship. There is a very good relationship between churches in Tehran, in Urmia. They respect each other. And people, they, they don't care what your background is religiously. We had lots of marriages. I mean, my both sisters, they married to the Assyrians from the Catholic Church. You know, uh, we never discriminated against each other. Unfortunately, these things got worse in United States first, and then in Europe, within past 20 years. But we never discriminate against each other. We respected each other. We went to our churches, and we are all were friends.
Very interesting. Actually, from that idea, AUA was born, of course, of the activities in Tehran. And the founders of the AUA organization, I think among them Mr. Mansour, who was the leading figure, they grew up in this movement. I heard the story from Rabbi Yusuf Bet Yusuf, who was also very active back then in Tehran. Yeah.
Yeah, what happened was that Iran, it always had a very strong political activism in Iran. It's even right now, okay? People, they have opinion. They read lots of books. I mean, I think people in Iran reads more than books than lots of people in the Western countries, okay? They get educated. And the Assyrians in Iran, they were involved with the changes that they were happening when Mossadegh took the government and the American coup d'etat against him and bringing the Shah back, we had a group in Tehran called Sita Sapreta, the Culture
Yes.
Committee. The Culture Committee was what happened with the Culture Committee. Some because of what happened of the coup d'etat, they were under investigations. Okay. And then some of the younger generation, they took over. And basically what they did, they built the association in Tehran. They had another group called Shushata Aturaya, which it was a young group. And then in 1964, they wrote a letter to Mar Isha Shamoun and suggested that we have to have organizations to be able to manage the Assyrian affairs. I have a copy of that letter and the response that was given by Mar Isha Shamoun. Mar Isha Shamoun was killed in San Jose, California in 1970s. And he responded that, I'm going to stick with my religious duty, but I wish you blessing and I will pray for your success. Eventually, in 1968, the Assyrian Universal Alliance was established in Pau, France. Those people that attended there, they were Assyrians from Iran, Assyrians from France, son of late Aga Putrus, Assyrians from Turkey, Assyrians from Syria, from Dakkasta, and the Assyrians member of the Syriac Church from Turkey. Because all those students, they went to the different universities and they met each other and they had contact, Assyrians from Iran with the students in Turkey, with the students in Syria, in Iraq, and eventually 1968 the AUA was organized.
Actually, Dr. Sanharib Hanna was a Syrian Democratic Organization representative in the founding meeting.
Yes, we consider Takasta one of the founders of the AUA.
Yes.
And we still have a very good relationship. I just had a message from Rabbi Gabriel Moshe. We have an event tomorrow, and he gave me some updates. And yeah, we have a very good relationship. Sometimes we may have disagreement on the policies or the strategies, which is natural, but we always had a very good relationship with the Takasta.
So I think that was the last slide, at least I have seen that you sent me. I want to go back to the AUA currently has an observatory status, or observer status at the UN Human Rights Council. And I think you published recently a report via the UNPO, United Nations for Unrepresented People, which this activities actually also goes back to a collaboration between the late Senator John Nimrod that we mentioned in the beginning and Mtakasta in Europe, because it was Mtakasta that established the first contact to UNPO and called AUA also to join. And let me say, and since then, since we are talking about the 90s when this relationship was established, and since then, I think seems that the relation has evolved and it's active. So can you let us know, this was a focus on Iraq very recently, I think this report, and there was an article even published, Aina reproduced the article, People at the Margins of Recognition, Assyria. Can you give us some background on this?
Sure. Assyrian Universal Alliance, it has it has organizations in the United States, it's in Australia called AUA Americas chapter or AUA Australia chapter. These are local, based in that country. They have a 501c3 status and they are under the laws of the United States. AUA Americas chapter has a consolidated status with the United Nations since 2012. And there one more organization, Assyrian Aid Society, that has a consultative status. And also there is an organization called Aramaic Universal Alliance, if I'm not mistaken, that they had the consultative status with the United Nations. What we do, we try to represent, report on the human rights condition, indigenous rights, and other issues within the United Nations. Sometimes we can't participate because we don't have the resources to do that, but we're trying to increase the participation because it's important for our people to be mentioned in the United Nations human rights, United Nations indigenous rights activities, that we still exist. This is very important. Our other common relationship is with the UNPO, Unrepresented People Nations. This organization was established in 1990 As far as I know, back then, Takasta had introduced the information to Rabbi Daniel Crispy, which he lives in Sweden. He's 94 years old right now. At that time, he was the Secretary General of AUN. Then they participated at the, I think, the second Congress of the UNPO conference, and we become a member as Assyria. And we're still member of the UNPO as Assyria. Okay, and what happened was that there was supposed to be a trip on June 15 to Iraq by the special reporter from the United Nations, and what we did, we submitted some information about the condition of our people in Iraq, in north of Iraq, about what's happening and the issues that we have. Unfortunately, because of the war, that trip was postponed, and we're hoping that it will be organized, and the UN representative, they will go there to do their report and come back. And that happened by cooperation that we have with the UNPO. We have more opportunities to work with the UNPO. There are more things to do, with the United Nations. Some of our people, they say, oh, it's not worth it. Why we're wasting time with the United Nations? No, 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 no. It is very important for us to be active with the United Nations, because there is a very good possibility in the future that indigenous people to have some kind of status with the United Nations, or I'm sure you know that a few years back, UNESCO had a $1 million budget to spend on our language. And that money all went to the Syrian government, and God knows what they did with it. They said, oh, we're going to take it to Malula and we're going to spend it there. But UNESCO had $1 million budget for our language, okay? Which, in our opinion, it's important for us that we be active with the United Nations, with the international organizations, in order to be able to protect our rights.
Mm-hmm. But from time to time, I think you submit, as we said, you have a special consultative status with the United Nations. And I remember we have worked once together, compiling a report on the situation of Turkey. You had a representative in Geneva. I am not certain if you have still somebody in Geneva who is so basically the contact between the organization and the UN. Do you have still somebody there?
We don't have somebody there, but I mean, I was recently able to get help from somebody to work for Assyrians in New York. She will participate in the meeting in New York. We have a couple of candidates from Europe that we're trying to work with them to be able to send them to the meetings at the Geneva, whatever happened in the Geneva, because we have capability to participate, register, do the presentation, and by doing that, you go into the minutes. One of the things that you work out with Rabbi Michael Benjamin back in, I believe, 2015, in the UN Human Rights Report, our name is mentioned. Some people may say, oh, so what? But it's important, okay? And we're trying to build those things as much as we can. The most issue is that we do have the talent, okay? We just have to recruit them from our own people and then support them financially to participate in these things, because all these things, they cost money, and you have to spend money to be able to participate.
That means when the UN prepares a country report, the AUA is able, at least has a channel to submit our own
Correct.
case, no matter how much of this report will be taken into the final report, but at least it has the option.
Oh, definitely. And then also I have to mention that when we applied to get the consultative status, for 4 years, the Republic of Turkey was opposing us.
I remember you were calling me if we have a contact in Ankara, and I brought you in contact with Errol Dora, our representative back then. And you went to the External Ministry of Turkey, and you had a meeting and you reported back on that. One issue was, of course, the genocide issue. How did it solve? How did it was it solved?
Yeah, in the 2012, you're absolutely right. For 4 years, they were blocking us. And then when the last time they blocked us, I told our representative, Mrs. Ilona, she lives in San Jose. I told her, go ask the Turkish mission why they're blocking us. I mean, what's the reason? Is that coming from their team in New York? Or it's from Ankara. They said it's from Ankara. Okay, we can go to Ankara and meet with the Turkish officials and see how we can resolve this. And thanks to you, I went to Ankara with Ilona, and we had a very nice lunch with Oral. I still have the pictures. Great man, very well educated, and he gave us some input, basically how you should talk to the Turkish officials. We met with the Undersecretary of Policy of Foreign Ministry in Ankara, and they were like 7, 8 different people from different division that we met with them for more than 4 hours. And after 4 hours, they told us, I'm sorry, we're not going to allow you to have this. And I told them, okay, thank you. I appreciate the time, but I need to tell you something. I have a son, he's 7 years old. Okay. I'm hoping he will become an attorney. If he doesn't become an attorney, I'm hoping he become an activist like me. Okay. I just want you to know that I'm gonna go. But you need to know that the future generation, they will come back and ask you for the same question. And I still don't understand what is making you to be so scared of us that you don't want to give us this small chance. He told me that, oh, we have an original letter from Aga Putrus that he wrote us back in 1921, where you were guys for the past 100 years. We never approached that, this and that. And then they offered to open up all their archive. That's something that we have felt. I mean, I have discussed it with some of our organizations that financially they can assist in this matter. We need to send our scholars to go and look at the archives and see what's the story from the Turkish side. We know our story, okay? We have to know their story too. And Armenians are doing it. The only person that is not doing it is us. They will open up the archive to us. Anyway, they said, okay, we're not going to give it to you. We left and we came back to US. The next day, they sent us an email. They said that we changed our mind and we're going to give you the status. And they approved. I think the reason that they did it because we were very honest with them.
Okay.
You know,
So
in
just as a background, Turkey was in the commission where every member of the commission had to agree with your status.
yeah, I think there are 35 countries member of the non-governmental body for consultative status. If any country opposes you, you cannot get approved. And then they review each 4 years, okay?
Okay.
And if the 4 years, if you don't pass the review, they kind of put you under suspension. They don't close you. Right now, we are in review process. And last time, we had some issues again with Turkish representation, thanks to Iraqi's mission in New York and the Iranians' mission in New York, American mission in New York, that they helped us to solve the issues and get our status going. And
Right.
right now we are still again we are in the review process, which I don't think we will have any issues.
Before we open our session for questions from the friends and people entered today into the session, Adnan is following on Facebook. I have a final question. So the situation in Iran, with regards to migration, is it halted? Is it slowed down, or is it stable compared to Iraq, to Syria, and Turkey? So how would you characterize the situation?
Unfortunately, we have these immigration issues in Iran, all over the Middle East, and in Iran, I think because of the recent war that happens, some people they may change their mind and they emigrate out of the country. And right now, there is no country that they will accept them as refugees. I know the American administration has some rules for making the visa process easier for the religious minorities. That was in part of the President Trump, executive order. But yeah, I mean, the immigration issue is a very tough issue in Iran, and
So it's
unfortunately,
still ongoing.
oh yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
But yeah,
I'm not gonna hide it.
yeah, you mentioned that there are even Jewish, of course, living in Iran, and they are in the same situation. Of course, they are in a dilemma. Israel, yeah, was attacking Iran, Iran attacking, and so on. So how is then the Jewish population behaving?
Okay, they should be as much more under stress because of what's happening. You know, the Jewish people in Iran are one of the ancient
Mm,
Jewish community. You know,
mm,
they've been in Iran probably for 2,500 years. They
mm,
have old synagogue. You know, Esther grave is in Hamadan. Daniel, I believe, is in Shush. You know, Daniel, and we have other people that are in the history goes back very bad. Then I'm sure they're concerned, but I have to make these statements that after the World War One, even at Pahlavi dynasty or after the revolution, Islamic revolution in Iran, they have been never attacked to the synagogues, Assyrian churches, or Armenian churches. Okay, that's not going to happen because that's not the way that Iranians are. Yeah, like any other citizen, they have to deal with the security issues and other restrictions that are in the country. I'm not saying that Iran is like a Jeffersonian democracy. No, it's not. It has its own tradition. It has its own belief. But our people, they're safe. If there is an issue, unsafe issue, that's for everybody, you know. And then if you have people that, if they have made the mistakes and they have done something that the government maybe doesn't like it, this thing can happen. Like we had issues that some people, one person about 4 years ago was arrested, but we were able to, to release her. And basically, our people are very active there. They have different opinions from the government. And Iran is not the way that we see it in the Western media, that it's a police state, you cannot breathe, you cannot do this, that. No, 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 no. You have to go there and see it yourself. I was there in 2023 for my mom's 80th birthday, because my mom, she still lives there, and I have relatives in Iran, and I've seen a huge difference in Iran, even in the government, that they deal the way that they deal with people. And I'm hoping that the Iranian officials, the politicians, the government, they make a right decision, and hopefully we will have a long peace in the Middle East. And I'm hoping that Iranian will do that. They are ancient people. They have more than 2,500, 700 years history, you know. But at the same time, they're not kind of people that you can force them to do something.
mm,
They will stand up. And I'm hoping that everything, it will be, you know, go back to normal in Middle East. We want peace. We Assyrians, okay, we don't need any enemies. And we don't fight with anybody. We want everybody to be our friends, and we want to be friends with everybody. We want the peace, and we want our rights in our homeland, in our ancestral homeland. Okay, we've been in that region for a very, very long time, even going back to the Neanderthals. Okay, we didn't emigrate there. We were there, we are there, and we're going to stay there. And in order for us to stay there, there has to be a peace. We are sick and tired of all this, fightings, wars, and insecurity. There is no economic security. There is no general security. There is no political security. I mean, how the people in the region are going to live. That's why most of the brains in the Middle East, taken from Israel all the way to Iran, are leaving the region. They're emigrating to the Western countries. It doesn't matter, Muslim, Christian, Jews, they're leaving. Why? Because they want to live in peace. They want to have a prosperity, they want to have peace, and they want to have a good life, like all of us that we have in Western atmosphere, in Europe or United States, Canada, Australia. Why not? People in Middle East, they contribute to the civilization. Our people, we created civilization. There are not too many nations like us. There are few nations like us that we created the civilization. We need peace in Middle East for our people to stay, to flourish, and protect the future generations. If there is no peace, it's going to be very tough to stay there.
Thank you. Let's open the session for questions, maybe here from the floor that people entered. And Adnan, do we have any questions on Facebook maybe?
Nee, لا تنشوا لا
لا شو عليك.
طب يقولوا تقعد انجليزي يا استاذ شو لو عمل يعني
عمليته أم الفونو ما عليه شنو أم الفونو.
Yes, maybe I can start with a small contribution or and then a question. I wanted to agree with you that according to what I have seen in 2017 in Iran, I felt that the people were much more free than I thought before I went there. Especially the at least the non-Muslims, because they have a special sphere to have their freedom, you know, even to drink their alcohol or to do their dances and so on, to live their cultural life. And I was actually impressed by the Assyrian cultural building and the mutwa and the people there. And the first thing I experienced was that when I arrived there together with a colleague from the University of Heidelberg, the Jonathan Bethkolia invited church leaders to come together, and we had a small conference. And before we started the conference, the bishop, in the presence of the bishop Ramzi, at that time of the Chaldean church, they asked the evangelical pastor, Muqaddesian, or Muqaddesi, I can't remember the name exactly. Yeah, so he started with a prayer. Actually, I was surprised, and it was very positive atmosphere to be there and to sit with these people. So Iran, yes, differs from all other countries I visited in the Middle East where our people live. So you can freely speak of yourself. Everybody knows you, that you are different, and that you have your own rights. Nobody forced you to be I don't know, Persian, because Iran is a multi-ethnical country. All ethnicities are respected. And we were going through Tehran. I saw a big poster or a shield or whatever, how to call it in English, road, autoroute, Kurdistan autoroute. Imagine to see something like that in Turkey or somewhere elsewhere. So it was no problem, because you have the province Kurdistan, you have Lorestan, you have Azerbaijan, and so on. So it's totally free in these things. So no ethnical problems. At least this was my feeling. And what I did not see as well was that the religious fundamentalism you face in many of these countries you don't see it in Tehran, not as much as in Turkey, not as much as in Iraq. So people were much more free. There were not so many mosques. At least we didn't hear the muezzin when we were there in the hotel. And I actually asked the taxi driver to show me a mosque in Tehran, in the city itself. So you don't see them like in Istanbul. If you're in Istanbul, you can't avoid. You are just every 5 meters, you have a new mosque. So it's this was very different. And I felt, we went to Tehran, then to Qom, next to the Fatima mosque. We had no problems, and we went there to Ahwaz to visit the Assyrian community in Ahwaz and the Mandaean community. So of course we know we have been observed all the time, so this is okay. we know this, but there were no problems, and I was very surprised that we can freely drive over the mountains through Khorramabad, Luristan, Kurdistan, and to Urmia. Yeah, so even in the villages, it was very surprising to me. But what I wanted to ask is actually, do our people leave the country because they face problems? You said that they do not face, and I said the same. But maybe there are problems you don't see. So we can imagine, but we don't see them directly. So why are they leaving the country? Are they leaving because of the economic pressure, or because of the situation in the Urmia Lake? Lake of Urmia is dying out, as you know. The water is becoming less and less in our villages. You visit big villages like Ada, even Goitapa, and all these. There are nobody. You see big villages, many thousands of houses, but nobody living there, or only 3-4 families. 7 churches in Ada, I think, but maybe 3 families living there. So I don't know what is the reason, actually. It's not clear to me.
The immigration of the Assyrians from Iran started very long time ago. The first one was a forced one by Nader Shah Afshar before the Qajarite dynasty, and they moved something to 80,000 of Assyrians to the border of Khorasan, Afghanistan, and today Pakistan.
Yeah, but this was in the 16th, 17th century.
Yes. And then since that time, these things has happened. The new tribes, they came to the Urimi, and then the number of the Kurdish people got higher. Then you had the democratic revolution in northeast of Iran, and some Assyrians got killed by the Shah government. At least 25 people from village of Erdishay, and maybe 15 people from Guitapa, and there were some other peoples that they were killed within that conflict. Okay, and I think after that, people start slowing, moving out. Then what the American did is that they told whoever was that in Russia or Soviet Union, and they were refugees in other countries, they can come to US. Okay, some of the Assyrians that they were from Russia and Ukraine, they start moving to United States back in 1960s. The immigration was slowly happening, but it wasn't mass immigration. The condition got worse when the Iraq and Iran war started, okay? And more people left. And then, because my family is gone, I'm gonna go and stay with my family. I wanna be close with my family. Right now, I think the major issue with the Assyrian people in Iran is that economic condition. Because, at the end of the day, everybody wants to have a good life, okay? If you are an engineer in Tehran, software engineer in Tehran, and you have a very good education, you're going to make money, but you're going to make more money if you are in Bay Area, in Silicon Valley, okay? And you will have a better life. Or if you're a nurse or a doctor, or some people, they're left behind economically. That's why they leave, because they have no choice, because we have different people in all over the Iran. Some of them, they make good money, they're educated, they're self-employed. Some people, no, they're not. I think the main issue is the economic condition. And then the second issue, mostly it would be the maybe political issues and some of the political freedom. Right now in Iran, socially, the government, it doesn't have that much interest in controlling on people what they're doing. But politically, I mean, there are some pressures. That's the reality. Not only on us, but on everybody. And with the war that happens now, I mean, any country will increase their security issues. They will do that. Even I think United States or European country, they take some measures to protect their national securities in the country. But in my opinion, most of it is economical, that people are leaving. And that's affecting our people based on the information that I have, with the conversation that I have with the church leader or politicians or activists that we have. In Iraq, it's economic, it's security. In Syria right now, I mean, it's mostly security because people, they don't feel secure in a new environment. In Lebanon, security conditions are better, but economic development, still nothing has happened, and that's something that is killing us, honestly. People, they want to have an easy life. They don't want to become billionaires, but they want to have a, life, to have a future, to make money, to prosper. They want that. And that's any human rights, that, to have all this advantage. Why not? Why not for our people in Middle East? Even Israelis are paying the heavy price right now with this conflict. We as the AUA, we are against any kind of terrorism activities in the world. What happened on October 7th in Israel wasn't fair. It shouldn't happen. Hamas shouldn't attack the Israelis. More than 1,200 people got massacred over what? And then what happened to Hamas? I mean, based on the United Nations numbers, because of that bad move, I mean, 50, 60,000 Palestinians has been killed. Okay, that was a smart move by Hamas? No. Then terrorism is not going to get us anywhere. Militia activities is not going to get us anywhere. We want to have a democratic, safe governments that can provide security and prosperity to all the citizens with no discrimination. If they do that, our people will stay there. If they don't do that, our people will not stay there.
Okay, spoken as a politician. Thank you, Carlo. If there are no questions,
Well, I would ask another question if possible.
Please go ahead. Go ahead.
We had hundreds of thousands of our people in Iraq. Okay, although we are talking about Iran, but it is we have parallel situation now in Syria. That's I wanted to mention Iraq. So it is said that we had about 500,000 people with their houses and their churches, their, I don't know, economic basics, companies and so on in Baghdad. And now there are about 10,000 people left. All their goods and belongings. Is there anybody, or is AUA trying to make an issue of this loss of property through this mass forced migration? Is there anybody making issues of this or lists of these goods of our people to ask for them to get them back one day, that the owners get back their houses and their villages? The same is, of course, for Iran and elsewhere. I remember being in Ahwaz, and there were only few people left in Ahwaz. There were several hundred families in Ahwaz. When I was there were about 40, 50 families left. So what happens to their property in the city? They didn't sell them, at least according to my knowledge. So do you do anything to register, and also an issue of it to ask the official governments that we want to get them back?
Yeah, okay. In Iran, we do have very small number of disputes in regarding lands that belong to some of the churches, and those things are haven't been resolved. we had some major issues in Iran with the land, but it was mostly our own people that whatever they did, I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to blame anybody or attack any bishops, you know, because I really don't have enough information. In Iraq, the situation is different, especially in Baghdad, in Nineveh Plain, and in the northern region. Okay. In our opinion, the best thing, and we have been writing this to the Sudani government for the past, 3 years that they've been the Secretary General of AUA. The best thing that they can do, we are indigenous people of Iraq. Okay. They have to establish a special office that oversees the condition of the indigenous Assyrian people in Iraq. They do have advisors. There are people that they, do work on our issues, but that's not enough. There has to be an office to oversee the Assyrian condition, the only indigenous people of Iraq. Arabs, they came to Iraq. Kurds, they came to Iraq. The Persians that they're there, or Turkmens that they're there, they came to Iraq. But we've been there. We've been there for maybe 40,000 years. From the time that Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens people, they were in the area. Then the government has to establish a special office for the indigenous people of Iraq, the Assyrians. Okay. 2, they have to change the election law. Right now, our representatives are elected by non-Assyrians, are elected by the either Kurdish political parties or Shia political parties. We have to be able to elect our own people. And we've been suggesting that since 2003, when Rabbi Yonatan Kenna was a member of the governing body, when they wrote the constitution, the best way that will work for us is the Iran experience. In Iran, only Assyrians can vote for the Assyrians. Only Armenians can vote for the Armenians. Only Jewish people or Zoroastrians they can vote for to elect their representative. We need this in Iraq. And then, when you come to the north, you have bigger issue. We have a land dispute. Unfortunately, lots of these cases are just, sleeping in the courts. Nobody's paying attention to them. In Baghdad, you have tons of properties that are up in the air. I think the best thing to do is that we, as our people in Iraq, they should organize some kind of a foundation that start registering these properties and taking them and taking the cost to be custodians of those assets until the families or whatever is happening, to be able to get access to it. This is a major issue. We are forced to lose our assets in Iraq. In Syria, I believe the same thing will happen. I'm hoping that Syria will succeed, but I think Syria, as of right now, is very unstable, and God knows what will happen with Syria. I know America moved some of the sanctions, but Syria's situation is bad. It may get worse. And I think in Syria, we're losing properties too. In Turkey, it's different. In Turkey, we lost the properties long time ago. The Syriac church, either the Orthodox or Catholic or Chaldean church, they have illegal entities there. And they were able to protect the properties, to the point. But for example, Church of the East, it does not have any legal entity in Ottoman and from the Ottoman Empire or in Turkey. That's why there are tons of properties that are left there and nobody can claim the ownership. For example, in Kuchanus, in Hakkari region, there are properties that are left there. But these are all major issues. In our opinion right now, our concentration, it has to be on Iraq, because we still have a good number of our people in north of Iraq. We have people in Nineveh Plains, and I think the Iraqi government, it will have an open mind to work with us. Okay, we have to make priority and tackle these issues. But it's a major issues in Iraq, and I agree with you. And this disagreement on land issues creates other competitions, other problems within our own community, between the church and the political leaders, and then corruption, you know, because people are trying to make money out of this.
But what is the role of AUA as with its link to UN issue, and how can it work with the local political organizations, social organizations, in order to solve some of the questions?
The most important thing is the documentation. Okay, I'm sure you guys remember a few years ago where there was a dispute on a village of in north of Iraq, that there was a fighting between the Assyrians and the Kurdish in that area, and then some of our people got arrested. At that time, we approached some of our organization in Iraq, and we told them that we have to update our documentation, because honestly, as of right now, we don't have good database on what we are losing in Iraq, or even in Syria, or maybe even in Iran. You know, there is not enough information. The last list that was prepared, it was back in 2012 by the Assyrian Democratic Movement, ZOA, and the Nineveh Center, Rabbi Michael Ben Yamin, but that was 13 years ago. Okay, there are many issues as far as the land issues in North, in Nineveh Plain, in Baghdad, that we have to work on it. Our suggestion has been to complete the data and then have enough support to take the matter to the court. Okay.
I think the representative, Assyrian representative in the KRG government in northern Iraq, he has published 2 years ago a report, I think, with more than 70, 80 cases, very well documented. And I am not certain if anybody is following up on those.
No, they're not. And yet, then you know, you have they're not following up because first it's you need to have attorneys to hire to follow up on those issues, and there are many of those issues. For example, last year we got involved with the cemetery in north of Iraq. It's 1 mile from Samile, and that cemetery, it has 10 martyrs from the 1933 massacre. Okay, that cemetery belongs to nobody. Anyway, we were able to contact the Church of the East, and the bishop in Nuhadra in Dohuk is working on a project to bring that, you know, under the church legal, you know, structure that they have. You have basically you have villages that belong to the regular people, regular citizens. Then you have properties that they belong to the churches. It doesn't matter, Syriac church, Chaldean church, or the Church of the East, both, you know, both of them. And somebody has to document them, and then you have systematically to work on this to get these issues resolved. Unfortunately, the court system in KRI area in north of Iraq, they're not implementing it. Most of these cases get delayed, postponed, and there are no resolution to that. Okay, and this is a very, very important thing, because we owe majority of the land in Dohuk area, and we're losing it every day.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I mean, we get lots of lip service from the Kurdish regional government in north of Iraq, but they're not taking any serious steps to resolve this matter. Or even if they take steps to resolve them, then they cannot enforce the court's order.
Mm.
You know, because local guy, some, you know, chief of the tribe or whatever will be against you, and they're not going to allow you to implement it. And this is very bad. We've been trying to establish a UA office in Iraq for the past 3 years. But as of right now, we haven't been able to do it because they have an issue with our name. They don't want to accept our name for a registration. And we've been going back and forth with the Iraqi, you know, the internal ministry to do that. Our objective is not to open up another political organization in Iraq. Our objective is, one, to have an organization in Iraq that can concentrate to lobby the Baghdad government. We need more support from Baghdad. We need more support from Erbil, okay? And to do all these things, it goes back to another matter, okay? We will not succeed, we will not get anywhere if we don't organize our halves first, our people halves first. I will call it Assyrian halves. That's include the Assyrians from Syriac church, from Chaldean church, from Church of the East, or Muslim Assyrian or Jewish Assyrians. We have to organize the Assyrian halves. If we don't organize it, we're not going to succeed. We're going to fail. Any of us is going to go and work for a corporation that doesn't have an executive board, that doesn't have a CEO, doesn't have a CFO, managers, supervisors to run that company. No, we're not going to do that because we know that company will fail. Then in our nationalism, we have to come up with a mechanism that mechanism can manage the Assyrian affairs. If we don't do that, we will have a very, very tough time in the future. And our objective as the AUA is to establish a system to be able to manage the Assyrian affairs. If we do that, then we will succeed. If we do that, if we have this unity in managing on our affairs, I promise you, countries, government, international organizations, they will support us. Even the churches, they will support us.
Okay, Carlo, thank you very much. You have today spoken as a AUA representative, as somebody who has relatives in Iran and knowledge of the situation over there. And we touched upon, I think, many issues. There is a message, I think, from Vasily. Let me check. I was not sure if I have seen it on chat. Saying very nice presentation, but all the issues should be discussed with the UN and the government of Iraq directly with the support of the European countries and first of all, England, France, Germany, and so on. That's what Kurdish and Palestinian people did or do. We are not going to invent a bicycle again today. So this is a message from Vasily. With that, I think we are now, we just crossed 90 minutes of our session. We didn't want to have a long session this time. So I will give you the opportunity to make a short closer statement.
I would like to thank you for organizing this event. I hope I've been able to give you some more information and explanation of what's going on. Thank you for asking about the Assyrians in Iran. They're safe, they're good, they're strong, and as any other citizen of any country, okay, they will support their countries, and they will, when it's time, they will voice their opinion, and they will give opinions to their government. Again, I would like to thank all of you. I hope that we had a nice discussion. If anybody has any questions, feel free to contact me. You can find me easily on social media. And my objective is that to serve my people. And AUA objective is to serve our people. And by doing that, we're trying to bring more success to our future. And we want to preserve the future. We want to preserve the future generation. And maybe one day we will have an internal autonomy in Iraq, in Syria, and we can preserve our culture, our language, our identity. And I'm hoping for the best. And I know that we will do the right thing in the future and we will succeed. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Carlo Ganjeh, Basim Arava, Ushba Shlomo. Tawdi.
Shlomo.